Hello guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. In today's video, let's talk about triggers. So to begin with, there are mainly three types of triggers in ADF. One is schedule trigger, and one is tumbling window trigger, and the other one is event-based trigger. In event-based trigger, we have one blob event and other events. So coming to scheduling trigger, it's basically the name itself suggests that you schedule a pipeline to run at a particular time. So based on that, you can schedule via a day or an hour or or a minute, and also a weekday and a month, something like that. So the characters are simple and cron like scheduling, no dependency on data or events. So it doesn't care about the data or the events. It just runs the pipeline on at the scheduled time period. So this is good for fixed batch pipelines. So how we usually do is, the so we'll just go to this trigger tab and new and edit. We just So you'll just name it the trigger and provide a description like what is this trigger about and all that. And here you can just consider, is it like schedule trigger or a tumbling window trigger or a storage events or custom events. So these two come under event based. So coming to schedule, so you provide a start date and a time zone. You can also provide a time zone, and you can also provide the recurrence. Like you can just give it like with the sorry, minute or hour or day or week or also months. So you can select on which day of the month you want it to run, and you can also give the weekdays. So this is how you can just provide that recurrence, provide the trigger with the recurrence and provide the start date and specify the, if you want to specify the end date, like you can just keep on running every month or every 11 months. So let's go with, sorry, every month, and you can just specify then end date. So after that it will stop getting that schedule. So you can just also provide then start date, and you can also give it an annotations, and you can just click OK and it just gets created. So now about the tumbling window. So tumbling window is also the same way, whereas the only difference between a schedule is more like similar to a scheduling trigger, but tumbling window can also have ability to read the historic data, meaning you can also give an end date like add dependency, delay, and maximum concurrency and retry policy, retry interval in seconds. So this does not have the issue of overlapping, meaning, so it breaks the entire schedule into a fixed intervals and runs runs one interval after the other, meaning in schedule interval, if you're running two pipelines, one, like if you schedule two pipelines after every hour and the pipeline takes more than 1 hour, the second pipeline however starts even before the first one is still pending. But however, in tumbling window, the second one starts only after the first one is completed. So here, you also, the main ability is reading the historic data. You can also run an historic run over here, whereas in scheduling window you can only run from the current to the future one. But here you can, in tumbling window, you can run present, past, and future dates as well. So time slice guaranteed once execution. Each window is a fixed non-overlapping time chunk, and example like every, it is more similar to scheduling window and characteristics like fixed, contiguous, and non-overlapping time windows, and a window must finish successfully before moving it to the next one. Supports retry for individual windows, track its own state exactly once behavior, and automatically reprocess missing windows. Tumbling window triggers passes special parameters into the pipeline, which window start and window end. Example, if window is early, then it'll be something like this. So window start is date and 00, and window end will be this one. Maybe it's scheduled for to run at 12 a.m. to 1, like 12 a.m. and 1 p.m., something like that. So use case incremental ingestion and time window based aggregations and replaying windows that fail, and real time-ish like pipelines without event dependence. So because tumbling window trigger guarantees that each window run exactly once, they are perfect for incremental ETL pipelines. So coming to event base. So before that, let's see how the tumbling window. You can just see it's similar to the configuration is more similar to that scheduling window. The only thing is different is you can add a dependency over here. You can add a dependency. You can also another trigger, like once this trigger starts, meaning once this trigger finish, only then it also depends on this, and it's a offset meaning the previous time. So now looking at the event based trigger, you have blob event and event like blob event trigger and custom custom events. So you can see from Azure subscription or some elsewhere, or you can also provide the event grid core topic names. So in case of blob events, you can see how I provided the storage account name and the container name and the blob path with which files to pick. So when created, it will notify us. So blob event trigger when the file is added or removed from a specific storage container, storage account container and path filters. That's how I just showed you like how storage container name and path will be providing, and trigger only when .csv file lands in that particular path. And event based like storage events or ADLS Gen 2 events or custom events or many Azure services, better for scenarios when you need a richer event metadata and you want multiple event types and enterprise level routing, and triggers pipeline when a new file arrives or when uh, partner uploads data or when logs land in the directory or upstream. It's more like uh, more complicated than just a simple blob event. So blob event is simply straightforward, whereas you can for an event grid one you can just create more than just the blob event triggers. So in this video we'll also talk about incremental windowing and watermark logic and data slicing and retry concurrency and settings. So in watermark logic, a watermark is a value that identifies the last processed record. So you will find this in tumbling window trigger. So typically watermark fields are like modified date or create date, incremental ID, timestamp column. Like we always need a particular time or a column which we should refer, and based on that the records were pulled. So watermark fields are such columns, and typical workflow reads the last watermark and query source system using simple select statement and load only new updated data and update watermark to latest value. Let's say you created a tumbling window trigger, and from you want, and today's date is, let's say today's date is 15th of November or something, and you want to run the pipeline from 10th of November to 20th of November. So the current data holds all the previous data, meaning it holds the data of 10th, 11th and 12th, 13th, 14th November data. And you can have created data as a watermark field. So when tumbling window, it's you can make it such that it checks the creation data, and it only gets the data where the creation data matches the window data, meaning if the created data is 10th of November, it processes those records, and that's how you can use it. ADF supports this using like lookup activity to read, or also you can use it by set variable or copy activity, or one of the best ways is using a store procedure. You can just create a store procedure and you can use these variables like window start date and window end date within that, and that's how you can easily use tumbling window and process the records, only the most updated one. And data slicing, meaning in tumbling window, the data slicing means processing the data one time window at a time. Example, I like I said, you have a timing window, and each window the data will be sliced based on, let's say, watermark and increment, let's say created date, based on the created date, and load hours, hourly partition, load daily folders, or process files that match the window, or create one output per time slice. With tumbling window triggers, ADF automatically provides window start and window end. So meaning, in the event driven pipeline, so the trigger body contains, in the event driven pipeline, the trigger body contains these trigger body folder path and file name, because since this is a blob trigger, so you can find this folder path and folder name, file name. Similarly, the tumbling window comes with variables like window start and window end, which you can use in your internal uh, procedures or something, and you then use these values like build dynamic folder paths, build SQL filters, or name output files and segment data by time, just like we use this as a pipeline parameters, and then in pipeline we use these in sync, sorry, in source. So likewise you can use the window variables of window parameters over here. And the retry and concurrency settings, you can see in the tumbling window we have something called retry and concurrency over here. Let's create a new one, and window advanced. If you go to advanced, we have maximum the number of simultaneous triggers runs that are fired, and delay before data processing of the window start, and retry meaning the delay before data processing of the window starts, meaning what is the wait time before after the trigger happens. So retry policy and retry policy interval in seconds. So the main difference between the tumbling window and the scheduling is where, if you schedule a pipeline over here, you can just select anytime, but it only schedule, it only runs. Then, for example, you start date it at this one, and you want to run every 15 minutes or every one day, every day. So, and it runs exactly at 1:14. You can also specify the time and all. So what I'm trying to say is, in case of schedule, it does not count the previous days, so it only counts the time and how long the recurrence should happen. But in tumbling window, it creates a fixed window from the start date, even if it is from the historic, and then it runs from there. So that is how you can just have a backfill in tumbling window, whereas the scheduling window doesn't supports that. And in tumbling window, like I said, you can add a dependency, meaning if you add a new window over here, and this particular trigger only runs after this window is done processing, and done once it's done doing its job. So in scheduling you don't have that option. Yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you for this. That's it for this video, and thank you for watching.